others. We're seeing a lot of things like Renata, Sorcerer, Scrap.
Is he
stuff
soft
like
for anybody else?
And believe it or not, we think it's time for a little bit of an adjustment here to try to make it a little less predictable. It is going to be a bigger swing than we normally do into a regionals patch. But
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can increase my volume here. Volume mixer. I'm maxed out. 98, 100. 100, 100. I don't know. I guess his microphone is just soft levels. All right, let me rewind a little bit. It's gonna be a big patch.
Scrap, stuff like that. And believe it or not, we think it's time for a little bit of an adjustment here to try to make it a little less predictable. It is going to be a bigger swing than we normally do into a regionals patch.
Okay.
But that being said, it is time to kind of move things around a little bit, make some of the things that are a little too reliable, bring them down. Some of the stuff that's just not really being seen also, we're going to see a lot of that get brought up. So hopefully overall makes it a pretty fun, exciting patch. So let's dive into the changes and get started.
All right.
All right, first off, gold orbs. There's been some complaints, rightfully so, about gold orbs being slightly imbalanced.
Yes.
It's like, ooh, I get 9 gold of units while somebody else gets a spatula. That's not fair. So we're going to try to rebalance these slightly so that gold orbs are a little bit more fair. Gold early game tends to be generally more valuable, but a little less exciting. So you're going to see here in stage 2 and 3, gold orbs, 12 gold's going to go up to 15 gold. Greater dupe's going to get an extra gold. 2 4 costs plus 6 gold now. That's a pretty big buff. 3 cost becomes 4 3 costs plus 2 gold. And then the 2-star 3 cost gets 2 more gold also. So some of these like non-item permanent ones should hopefully help you snowball and get a little bit more advantage there. And then the stage 4 orbs, where items are already pretty valuable and don't need to be more valuable, their values are coming down. So completed anvil loses 2 gold, thieves gloves loses a gold, and then the spat or pan plus anvil loses 3 gold. So
yeah, okay.
Again, just slightly rebalancing these gold orbs to hopefully make them more fair.
Okay, well, I mean, this is really important because the orb distribution felt really bad. You got dropped a Nunu and a Kog'Maw and a Blitzcrank, and they are completely useless. And they got a spatula, and they activate whatever is the really key piece. Like, let's say they get 6 sorcerer immediately. They on stage 3, which is pretty powerful. They're able to get 4 family, things like that. It's just not. It doesn't feel very fair in that sense. So this has been actually a really big source of complaints from me. Actually, I complain about orbs a lot, and so I think that this is actually a really good change. Is it like a 1 gold difference type of thing in some of these situations? I'm not sure. You know, it still probably feels bad to get dropped some 3 costs when they're getting like
I'm getting more
component anvil and a pan, but I think it probably feels better. It is a big deal to get a lot more gold early. It is a really big deal, and if you don't know that, then you're probably not valuing econ enough. This is a good change. We'll see if it ends up being like, it makes it feel a lot better, because at a certain point when you get so many of these 3 costs and whatnot, it's a lot of tempo as well. It's not just econ, right? It's not like, oh, I got 12 gold. You also get 3 costs you can play around. If these are swains and stuff like that, you're pretty happy about that right now. No, thank you for 2-1.
All right, on the trait side, Automata pretty much fallen out of favor. That being said, we know the high end, when the 6-piece was like 150 armor in MR, that was a little nutty. Now we know the low end, so we're going to try to give it a very slight buff here. 4-piece gets 5 more armor in MR.
Okay.
6-piece gets 11 more armor in MR. So Automata should maybe be an option. Maybe we'll start to see some more Kog'Maws, more Malzahars come back into the scene. Cool. All right, Chem Baron. Overall, believe it or not, we're happy with the removal of the emblem. That being said, we hear players that it's kind of frustrating to play. It requires way too much to go right. So we are going to buff it a bit here. I'll be honest, I'm nervous about these buffs. I think Chem Baron will be good. If it's not good here, it's not going to get any more buffs than this. But the biggest buff here is that the 4-piece, when it's streaking, will get 5 more shimmer. That is going to allow it to hopefully snowball. When you get like the 4-piece early, that should feel like a sign to play Chem Baron. The 5-piece is also going to get plus 10. So if you hit the 5-piece, that's when it's really going to be likely to hit that 500 or even 600 cash out. And then to give Chem Baron some other options, because right now it is basically always skip 200, 300. You don't really care about those.
Oh, that's not true.
We
That's not
increased the
true.
rewards very slightly. Now, I do mean very slightly. We're talking in terms of like 4 to 6 gold.
That's definitely not true.
But now you should actually be like, oh, there's some strategies where I could maybe play Chem Baron early, get to like 200, get some extra rewards, and move out of it. So hopefully Chem Baron becomes a little bit more of an interesting trait to play in the back half. Conqueror.
All right. Well, just a real quick pause, just because there's a lot to break down. So we'll just go piece by piece. But Automata buffs is like justified. This trait is not very real. I've seen people hit 6 Automata. It only felt like Automata was very real if you hit like 6 Automata like stage 3, because somehow you got 2 spats.
Man, I'm getting more dogged again.
I've even seen people hit 6 Automata stage 3 and still go like 5th and 4th because the lobby dynamics too crazy. So this is justified. It does make mid-game Automata a lot better, or slightly better. This, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about. Chem Baron has been kind of a big miss this set for me. I don't think it's been it's like fun to play sometimes, but overall it's either been like too weak, too strong, like way too strong, and then the fact that you don't pivot out of Chem Baron felt really bad. I actually think, believe it or not, where it is right now has actually been the coolest it's been. Which has been that Chem Baron is actually used as a splash trait for Econ to help enable certain comps. Alex, thanks for the raid, man. Appreciate it. I feel like Chem Baron's actually been the healthiest it's been all set this past patch, because it's enabling a couple of reroll comps. You can play Chem Baron into Renata, but it's a support trait. You can keep it or take it out. You can play it into Smeech, and you can play it into Rennie for Visionaries. And so it's like the most diverse it's been. The only thing it's lacking is whether or not you can actually play Chem Baron the actual
Man, I'm getting
vertical.
more dogged again.
But now they're buffing like the cash out rewards for the reroll lines. And so if they like don't nerf or if they don't adjust accordingly, it could be very much like the Chem Baron opener into reroll is going to be very, very good. So we'll see. Lightning Bro, thanks for the prime.
Conqueror is a trait that I've never ever played whatsoever. But when I do play it, it's one of those things that you kind of have to have 4 early or it's pretty much unplayable. And the 2-piece doesn't really feel like a real start.
Oh, oops.
You have like a Darius 2, Draven 2, and Darius is pretty strong, but Draven not so much. So they're going to get a little bit more AD and AP. Now, I know you're looking at this and you're seeing 22, 25, that's barely an upgrade. Sure, but you get triple the stacks. So Conqueror is mostly about upgrading the stacks when you go from 3 to 4.
Yeah.
So there you go. Enforcer 8 has been really, really strong for a while. This is one of those comps that you get a +1 emblem and you're like, cool, I'm way, way stronger now. A little bit too much stronger. So this is one of the ones that's going to get brought down. Damage amp goes from 48 to 40.
Okay.
Family has mostly disappeared from the meta other than like silly high rolls. You can't really play family that much. So you're going to see some pretty decent family buffs. We do want to make sure family is something that can be played. So 5 more mana reduction at the 3 and 4 piece, and then you'll see some other champion buffs later.
Oh dear.
4 Form Swapper. This is another one that's pretty tough to play. It's not bad by any means, but going to give the 4-piece 3% more damage reduction if they're up front, and 4% more damage amp if they're in the back. And then finally Pit Fighter. Pit Fighter has been mostly absent from the meta, pretty much all set. So went with a pretty big swing here. 2 Pit Fighters, great, because you get that 15% Omnivamp. You're in a good spot. The problem is going any higher than that's not really worth it, so we're going to make it more worth it. So at 4 and 6 piece, you're going to get an extra 10% of that healing.
Wow.
So they'll be a lot
swing.
tankier. I'm hoping like 6 Pit Fighter Vis are actually going to be kind of a terror now. So hopefully we can see some Pit Fighter comps.
Yeah, so the Pit Fighter, that's a pretty big buff that. And they buffed it the last patch as well, and they might buff, if they're buffing family, they're also buffing the Pit Fighter opener, because you could play around Violet into Pit Fighters. So if they buff like Violet herself as well, like the Pit Fighter could just be a very, very strong trait to play around next patch, because it's not just about the vertical, but also how you get into it. And then also it's entirely possible, I think they're also nerfing Caitlyn. Someone told me they're nerfing Caitlyn. So if it's like nerfing 8 Enforcer and nerfing Caitlyn, it could just be like now Pit Fighter's the melee line. Right now, the way Enforcer is that this is what you play if you slam Bloodthirster and Titans, and you're thinking about Enforcers, because it's not really that good items for Echo and Scrap, and you don't really have many other AD melee lines like Emissary and Bessa. So, I mean, maybe they buff that as well, because maybe they buff Conqueror. Maybe that helps snowball something else later on if they're buffing it. But for the most part, that's a really interesting thing to pay attention to. So anyone who loves the BT slam, keep your eye on for that. I actually didn't even know Form Force Swapper needed a buff. I actually think Form Swapper is pretty great. So, yeah. You know what's interesting? This also buffs another variation that you can pivot out of. Let's say you're playing Pit Fighter, but you're just not hitting Vise, but you hit Jace. So you just play 4 forms instead. So it actually could be something that's like the entire tree is just getting buffed. Like maybe the entire, like maybe BT just becomes a good slam next patch because of this exact. You can reroll, you can tempo, and you have pivot options. If Enforcer still doesn't suck, maybe it's fine. We'll see. Yeah, also, okay, I don't expect 2 Conquer to be that big. Conquer still has the same problem as before. This does helps for sure, but as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't really make Conquer all of a sudden like, well, you know, I should play Conquer every game.
Cool. Quick Striker. This is another one that's like ever so slightly below the line. So Quick Striker, if you go to 4-piece, you're going to get a little bit more shield every time you get a takedown. So that's pretty cool. Scrap. This is one of those comps that I said was really, really reliable. Units, yeah. So it's going to lose 5 shield per component. Basically a 10% nerf to Scrap shield.
This is a nerf.
So Scrap is going to require a little bit more to go right for it to be playable, rather than just this safe comp that you can play every single game. All right, Sniper. Sniper has been something that basically hasn't been around all meta, and it's going to get a bit of a buff, nerf, rework, whatever you want to call it here. One of the biggest problems with Sniper is that if you're playing, let's say, 4 Sniper, and someone walks into melee range, you're getting very little benefit. You're getting like no damage. If they're far away, sure, you're getting lots of damage, but if they're close, So we reworked it so that if they're closer now, you're going to get a lot more damage. It's going to feel pretty good. At the max range, it is a nerf, but for most of the cases where they're like 3 or 4 hexes away, it's a buff. About 5 hexes is neutral, and then from there, it gets a little bit nerfed. But overall, this should help a lot of cases where like, I had all these snipers, they're walking up to me and my damage stopped. It's not very fun. So you'll get that damage regardless of range, especially good at 6 Sniper. 6 Sniper, you're just going to have 80% flat all the time, no matter where they are. So hopefully this helps snipers cover their weaknesses a bit and makes them a little bit more playable. So, yeah.
This makes Sniper Emblem fascinating. I think this is like, okay, so like playing dry 4 snipers, like, okay, they buff Automata, they buff 4 Sniper, maybe it's like Kog'Maw, Zeri, whatever, but like I think this makes the Sniper Emblem fascinating to me because 80% damage amp is so much. It is so much. So it's like you get the range extension, you get 80% damage amp if you can play like 6 Sniper. That just sounds like some crazy shenanigans can happen. 40 is a lot already as well. If for reference, I'm pretty sure that's like basically 1.75 Giant Slayers. So it's very efficient for the item damage amp if that's what you care about. Assuming that's in the case. So there might be something stupid. Like maybe it's like Sniper Nocturne is now like maybe you just play Sniper +1 into Nocturne. And that's just like an insane amount of damage amp. So who knows? 6 Sniper Nocturne, yeah, dude. Oh man, I have no idea. So either way, this is really interesting. I'm down to shake it up. Sniper has been bad for most of the set. To play more than 2, so I'm down for them to try something. And this is like one of those danger zones where it could just be like, yeah, me Sniper GG's. The nice thing is, there's one thing that's nice. Sniper can't be made, so it wouldn't be like a rush for a pan or spatula off carousel. Sniper, I believe, can't be crafted. Who asked for 4 Quake Striker buffs? Huh? Isn't this trait actually kind of busted, especially if you get on stage 3? Who here asked for Quake Striker buffs? Huh? I'm pretty sure this is actually a great trait. So this one's out of left field. Also, I think Scrap actually, maybe this is a hot take. I don't even think Scrap needed to get nerfed. I actually think Scrap is in a pretty good spot. So I think it's probably because when they locked it in, Scrap was still performing pretty well. But I actually think Scrap's okay, personally. I actually think Scrap is actually an okay spot. More maybe that's a hot take. I said maybe it's a hot take. I think Scrap might be okay. I think the problem is that like Rumble is too good, and I think some of the augments for Scrap are too good. Like I think trait tracker and all that stuff like that. But I think Scrap at its baseline. Okay, more. Let me show you something. Let me show you something real quick. Scrap Corky, 5.0 average. 99 games. This is not just America's. It's also like every other region as well. Scrap vertical 4.24, and that's EU. It did worse on day 2. I actually think it scales. Do I have APAC stats as well? Let me see. Scrap vertical 4.97 in APAC. I think Scrap is actually kind of fine. I know that's like, again, there's only a few hundred game sample size. It's pocket challenger meta. He's balancing for the greater piece of it, but I think it's not as big of a deal as it was. And they locked in these details a while ago, but that's just my take. Visionaries and Sorcerers are getting nerfed. Oh, that's fair too. Yeah, I have to look at the rest of the patch.
Sorcerer, another one of these very...
Why are they playing it so much? That's actually a really good question. Why are they playing it so much? Why are they playing it so much? I think it's because a lot of people who are playing Scrap don't know what else to play because they hear the challenger players say there's no comps that can roll on 8 except for Scrap, and they say, oh shit, well I have a sword and a glove. What else do I play? Oh, I should play some Scrap from here because I guess that's the only thing you can play. So then they just all commit, and then you look around and there's 4 players playing Scrap, and you're just like, well, yeah, I guess I'm screwed.
Reliable comps right now. We didn't really adjust any of the sorcerers except for like Swain slightly.
This is a good nerf.
But the trait is going to lose 5 AP at 4 and 6, so the trait will be a little bit weaker. Visionary is going to get a lot of adjustments you'll see throughout the patch, but one of which is the 6-piece healing is going to go down 2%. 6 Visionary, especially the Renata comp, but really in general, just outputs a lot of healing.
These are good nerfs.
Probably more than a 6-piece should, so we're going to bring that down. And then finally, Watcher. Watcher 6 is definitely the least played of the 3 front lines. I guess Bruiser's kind of not played much as well. But we're going to raise the minimum damage reduction from 4 and 6. So some of those 6 Watcher lines should be pretty good. They'll start off just as tanky, but then when they drop below that 50%, they won't die quite as quick.
Gloves off Vanderbuff.
All right, on the champion side, like I said, mostly buffs, a few nerfs. Looking at champions that just haven't really been meta. Amumu is going to be going to get some extra flat damage reduction. Should be a better starter. If you want to go Automata Amumu 3 or Amumu 4, he should be more powerful. Cool. Draven, kind of already mentioned it. This is the second Conqueror buff here. But Draven, just kind of a mediocre opener. Going to get some extra attack speed. Hopefully makes him a better 1 cost. Powder. Powder buff is interesting. If you look at her, she kind of breaks our traditional spell scaling frameworks. Her 1 and 2 star damage numbers are really high. And this is a big buff to like 1 star powder. Small buff to 2 star powder. Tiny buff to 3 star powder. So it's not going to make like 3 star powder dramatically better. But if you open up with like, a Violet 2, Powder 2, Vander 1, you should be like, hey, I might actually be willing to play this powder. So she'll do some more damage. Singed, part of the Renata comp here. Singed gives a lot of attack speed when he casts his spell. This is going to get nerfed down a little bit 2 star, more at 3 star.
That's a huge nerf. Wow.
Renata didn't need 160% attack speed.
That's a huge nerf. Okay, so someone in chat said Amumu doesn't scale off of AP. He does. It's just he scales his damage reduction. So it's a meme. It's a meme. There's no actual AP Amumu comp. It's just a meme in the community. So I should have explained. Do not play AP Amumu. It's not real. It's nice though. This flat damage reduction helps a lot in the early game, especially if you get Amumu 2 and you have items on him. Amumu, if you remember the Automata patch when Automata was better, Amumu was actually kind of unkillable. So they're buffing Watchers, they're buffing Automata, they're buffing Amumu itself. So he should be more desirable. I also think as part of it is because Amumu didn't offer as much utility as the other Sentinels. So like Singe 2 versus Amumu 2, you saw like what Singe could do, both utility wise and just kind of be a Sentinel. So, and he's a Chem Baron, so it was just way better to hold someone like Singe than Amumu. So now maybe you'll consider it. Also, they're buffing things around Amumu, like the snipers. So like maybe he just becomes a better frontline. It could be very much that next patch was like a Watcher sniper build. Draven is actually, believe it or not, low-key, like kind of the reason why family is even somewhat is pretty playable. Or not pretty playable, but like the reason why some people even are playing some family lines right now is because they kind of realized that the bust Draven last patch, not this patch, but the last patch, actually kind of made him somewhat respectable. So this should definitely make him a lot better. And they're buffing Vertical Pit Fighter, and they're buffing Conqueror, 2 Conqueror in particular, which helps Draven especially because Draven activates with 2 Conqueror, gets the stacks and snowball. So you might not want to skip Draven next patch of holding him. This guy might be like, if you, I know that you guys love Rageblade, and if they're buffing Twitch, it might be, oh, the disease might come back, the Rageblade disease. You guys waver between Shojin, Infinity Edge, and Rageblade. You guys slam these items, have no clue what to play, and you all play the same 4 cost. So it might be back. The Rageblade disease might be back, you guys. Draven is better now. And they're just like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'll figure it out later. Let's slam Rageblade. This powder buff is pretty good. If you guys have, yesterday we actually saw it in tournament twice. Moonlight powder. And powder kind of goes crazy. She's decent early game if you know how to play around her. And then late game, they're buffing her damage as well. So yesterday we saw a powder Smeech duo carry ended up kind of crushing and got like top 2, I think. I think it almost won the game. I think it lost to TF. But yeah, powder's actually already kind of good. One thing nice is that if they buff early game powder, that might make like part of what makes scrap kind of bad is that their early games didn't actually kill a lot of stuff. But if powder becomes reliable enough, maybe this is like the opener you're looking for, more of the scrap opener. I mean, they're also buffing family units, but we'll see. I'm not entirely sure. But powder carry might be something with family. Maybe it's like not about Violet anymore. Maybe it's Draven powder early game, and then Violet takes a backseat.
This is going to
this is like
down
huge.
A little bit 2-star more.
This hurts Renata. This hurts Zeri. This hurts Tristana. This hurts like this actually affects a lot of reroll comps, like a lot. So
we're at 3-star. You know, Renata didn't need 160% attack speed, so that's going to be lowered. 2 costs again, mostly buffs, couple nerfs. Akali, a champion that didn't really benefit a lot. You don't really see a lot of Akali reroll. 10 off her mana will help. So hopefully Akali can be a little scary. Get some Akali Nocturne going on. So, yeah. Leona, same thing. Not a lot of Leonas going around right now. Her spell's pretty meh. So she's going to get 10 off her mana. So Leona should be a little bit more playable. Help out Academy early. I think Academy openers are going to be very strong next patch.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yep.
Renata, yeah. Renata is definitely, I think, probably the least fun comp to face. It's not necessarily like OP. It's definitely very strong. But it's definitely not fun to face. So Renata is going to get a bit of a nerf here. 5 off her mana cost. So she'll do cast less. And in particular, she does us a shocking amount of AoE damage. Her spell should hit the target it hits pretty hard, but the AoE damage is like a lot, actually.
Yes.
So that's going to get hit a chunk. So she won't just be AoEing teams down. So she'll be weaker. All right, Urgot. This is a nerf to the way people are playing Urgot right now, but Urgot was designed to be a 2-range champion. He's an artillerist, not necessarily a giant thing that has infinite health with lockets and sterics and casting repeatedly. That version of him ends up being pretty unhealthy. So he's going to have less health. This is going to make him less tanky.
90 mana.
He's going to have higher mana cost. So this is when he does reach this state, he's not just going to infinitely go cast as much.
Yeah.
So this hurts like the locket builds, the triple steric, stuff like that. To compensate, he's going to get some more attack speed. So if you play him as like a backliner, he'll gain that attack speed. But the unhealthy versions are going to get a pretty chunky nerf here. Vander is the last part of the family buffs I talked about. Not a lot of people playing tank Vander or anything like that. So Vander is going to be able to hit a little harder and gain some more armor.
Dude, gloves off Vander.
Before you worry, gloves off, folks, because gloves off, his hero augment is already really strong. It is being nerfed later in the patch, so don't freak out. But Vander is going to get buffed so that base Vander can actually be playable.
Okay, no, it's just true. Gloves off Vander is actually kind of like gloves off Vander is very much like low key, like Lone Hero Lux vibes, low key. Just like watching him 1v9 everything and you can't kill him. It's really annoying. Like he's on the low is pretty problematic, but whatever. Man, how many patches in a row has they nerfed Urgot? How many patches in a row they nerfed? Like 4 patches now. This guy, how good was Urgot at his peak, man? When this dude was in his prime, man. This 90 mana does stop his shotgun, like his repeated shots. Oh, thank you. Ooh, my wife got me some nice buns.
Man, I'm getting more
Dude,
dogged again.
Do you look at the shape? Oh man. It's a noob stopping cup. It absolutely is not, unless you're calling everyone in every tactician's cup in trials a noob. But Urgot's really good. The attack speed buff is like nice, I guess. Maybe like the Appy's variation where you played Urgot towards the back is good, but he being 2 hex is for Urgot has always been not actually that impactful or even good. So he never felt like a true 2 hex range units. 2 hex units are actually just generally a little bit weird. The only 2 hex unit that ever felt like because Mbessa also dives in, for example, they're always kind of weird and awkward. This is a pretty big nerf. I feel like reroll. Oops. I feel like reroll is going to go through a pretty big identity shift because Singe is getting nerfed, which actually anchors a couple of reroll comps. Urgot's getting a pretty big nerf. Renata's getting a pretty big nerf. They're buffing like family, and then now they're buffing quick strikers and Akali. Buffing. So like it might be like one of these things where reroll takes a huge dramatic facelift, and now like half the reroll comps that you played are like a lot worse, and there's a bunch of other reroll comps. So I'm expecting a massive shift for next patch. They're buffing. Don't forget they're also buffing Chem Baron as well. So it's like they couldn't like leave some of these Chem Baron units alone. This actually makes a lot of sense.
His hero augment
Like,
already really
the targets kind of make a lot of sense. I'm not so sure about some of the numbers because this looks like a really big nerf. I would hate for Urgot to die completely as a comp, but it is when Urgot's really good. It's like really good.
strong. It is being nerfed later in the patch.
Dude, these
so don't
buns.
freak out. But Vander is going to get buffed so that base Vander can actually be playable. All right. 3 costs. 3 costs in particular are where we're not seeing a lot of people really going deep and playing a lot of 3-cost reroll. So trying to help the weakest of the batch here. First off, Blitzcrank. And so yes, if you're keeping score, this is Automata buff, Amumu buff, and Blitzcrank buff. So yes, this is 3 buffs.
Uh-oh.
But it's mostly targeted around Dominator.
What is
That being said, if you compared Blitzcrank shield to Laura's shield, it was pretty pathetic. So Blitzcrank shield is going to go up quite a bit. 80, 100, 150. 3-star Blitz going to be a lot tankier. So hopefully this opens up some Dominator reroll lines. Speaking of which, we have the second part of that, Cassiopeia. She's been getting a few buffs. They just really haven't been doing enough. So we spent some time making sure really what she was kind of struggling with. She's very good at single target damage, which is always rough late game, but her AoE was just mediocre. So she gets a big AoE buff here. So every time she hits that 3rd cast, she'll be able to splash some extra damage. She's now substantially better than Ziggs. I confirmed it personally. So
okay,
should be able to play Blitz Cassio reroll. That should be a real thing. Nunu, this poor champion, doesn't really have a great identity. That being said, we at least going to let him be tankier. So if you want to make a tank Nunu, getting 60% DR, that's the highest one we've got in the set right now. So at least you've got that. Is this going to make Nunu highly desired? Probably not, but it's a buff. Rennie, this is a pretty big buff as well. This is mostly meant to help Chem Baron and Bruisers a little bit. But Rennie's going to be able to cast a bit more and heal a bit more when she does. Now, this heal buff is only the AP part, not the percent HP. So it ends up being mostly a buff at like 1 star, smaller buff at 3 star, but Rennie should be able to be played and help the Bruiser line. So, yeah. And then Swain, this is the second Sorcerer nerf. Very tiny nerf to 1 and 2 star. They stabilize you a little too well in Sorcerers, especially because you can play like 4 Sorcerer very early and stabilize off this Swain. That being said, we did not nerf 3-star Swain at all. So if you do hit the 3-star Swain, he should still be a beast. But 1 and 2, a little worse.
Some of you guys who've been watching me do this patch for patch owe me an apology. I know a bunch of other people apology who kept shitting on backline Swain. There's people still in Mortdog's chat as of like 2 days ago asking if backline Swain is even good. I can't believe how long it took for people to take on. Obviously, the 6 sorcerer buff helped a lot, but this nerf is justified. Rennie's already a pretty good unit, by the way. I actually think Rennie is like like the good players know when to hold Rennie, when to play Rennie, when to upgrade Rennie and play around it. Yesterday, for example, like Setsuko played a really good build different game and he's anchored around 3 cost and Rennie was a big core of that. It was like Rennie, Smeech, and Twisted Fate, and then he used that to like convert it to a win for build different. Like if you know how to use Rennie in the good spots, even not necessarily outside the bruisers and Chem Baron, you just like knew that she was a good unit. In contrast, Nunu is not a good unit. Nunu's terrible. Mainly because his experiment's not that great. He's not important to the visionaries. He doesn't really tank very well. And even in bruisers, he is not usually the desirable unit. So he's kind of I don't anticipate this to be that big, but maybe I'm missing something. I played a lot of Dominator reroll this patch. I played like 4 times. And I gotta tell you, I had a game. I hit Cassiopeia 3, Blitz 3, and Ziggs 3 on on stage 4. I had items for all 3 of them, including an artifact for Blitzcrank. I had Unending Despair, which is actually his best artifact. I had combat augments. It's not like I took all econ. I had a combat augment. I think my augment was like something generic. I think it was like Inspiring Epitaph or something like that, or I think I had something pretty decent. Was it Mana Flow? No way. If I had Mana Flow, I think I would be complaining a lot more. And I struggled to win any fights. I barely, by the skin of my teeth, got a 4th place. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I had everything. I had like what was perceived to be BIS across the board. I hit everything, and it was just awful. So they need to buff this. This is like very justified. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about that. Maybe now we can play too much value into more than just Twisted Fate and Loris and Quake Strikers and 2 costs. You can maybe play 1 more reroll line, and that's good. Also, if Cassiopeia is better, this is actually really important for your blue buff slams, because you need to have more than just Heimerdinger and Visionaries to play for, or like the Hyrule Caitlyn. So anything that can help your item economy, if you get flooded with tiers, it just gives you more options, which is good. So I like that. Oh, I muted more dog.
And
Sorry.
Chem Baron, he should still be a beast, but 1 and 2, a little worse. 4 cost. Silco, definitely the other part of Dominator and Chem Baron that's been struggling a little bit. Gave him the smallest possible buff to his minion damage, which is where most of his damage comes from. So just a tiny buff there, but hopefully the fact he has better frontline with things like Blitzcrank, better support with things like Cassiopeia should also help him. Rennie as well. And then the Vile damage was just to get it in framework. There's no reason 1-star Silco needed to be punished for his little Vile damage. Twitch is actually pretty close. I know people like to say Twitch is bad, but he's also getting the sniper change as well. That being said, his experiment bonus is like kind of nothing. So we are buffing that experiment bonus quite a bit, which should help him out in the experiment lines. So cool. And then 5 is like,
all right, Rage Blaze stonks are going so crazy right now. They gave Twitch a 5% experiment damage bonus. You guys remember when Twitch got buffed a couple patches ago, and everyone played 3-way Twitch for the entire patch, even though it was kind of mid without the experiment +1? They buffed Rageblade holders, and they buffed Twitch. Good luck getting a bow on the carousel next patch. That's all I'll say.
Kind of nothing. So we are buffing that experiment bonus quite a bit, which should help him out in the experiment lines. So cool. And then 5 costs. Generally 5 costs right now, there's a few of them in particular that are like kind of holding up a lot of comps by themselves.
Ooh.
Caitlyn's holding up Enforcer by herself. LeBlanc is holding up everything by herself. And then kind of the same with Rumble. They're all just way too
I'm
good.
getting more dog to
wow.
Hit one early or hit a 2-star early, it's like GG. So they're all going to get brought down so that it's not as much of a LeBlanc and Rumble lottery. So Caitlyn, a little less damage on her headshot. LeBlanc, less damage on her spell and less spell damage sharing.
Big nerf.
The fact that people were swapping Zoe 2 to LeBlanc 1 items, not okay. Not where we want her. So she's going to get hit. And then Rumble is going to lose 5 armor and MR and 10% off his spell damage. So Rumble, especially with 0 upgrades, should be quite a bit weaker.
Yeah.
That being said, from what I've seen, he's still pretty good. The 1/5 cost that does get a buff here is Savika.
That's good.
Savika, no one's really excited to play Savika. Generally, people would rather have a 2-star Vi than a 2-star Savika. This isn't going to dramatically shift it, but it should help Savika at least roll a bunch more, maybe get some cool knockouts or roll that jackpot. Should be fun. So Savika should feel like a 5 cost. She'll be better.
Yeah, my argument would be Savika would be one of the most fun 4 costs of all time because she feels like a 4 cost. She feels like kind of a utility unit, and actually like a high impact 5 cost. But as a 5 cost, she feels pretty bad. Part of it is because I feel like she can't ever be consistent. She rolls one of 3 abilities with her lottery arm or jackpot arm, so it's almost like impossible to rely on her. But they did buff Pit Fighter, so maybe she ends up maybe it's like one of those things where you just let her do her thing, and Pit Fighter has so much tempo now, and that she just ends up being really good. Sniper Savika, come on guys, that you guys have watched too many Leduc YouTube videos. I tried that before, even when it was perceived to be good, and it was not very good. So LeBlanc 1 was way too insane. This is a huge nerf. And Rumble just is the best 5 cost in the game if you just like got him anchored. They also nerfed 6 Scrap and they nerfed Rumble, so Scrap actually might. Don't be surprised if Scrap struggles next patch. Actually, I wouldn't be. I mean, maybe their early game got a little bit better because of Powder, but I can see a world where Scrap actually just kind of goes back to being like a niche line that you play only if you have like specific augments, kind of similar to where like Rebels and I guess some other like some of the other rules we play. But we'll see. This Caitlyn, I mean Caitlyn 2 is insane. I don't even know if Caitlyn 1 didn't get nerfed that much or significantly, but this is I actually don't know how big of a deal this is, but I'm assuming that is relevant. So.
And then 6 costs. Yes,
Oh.
for those who are avid
boy.
Soju viewers, yes, Blood Hunter is being nerfed. It's really close. Warwick is like right at the line. If you look in the data, it's like Warwick and then Elise and then Echo. It's like really close. But
What
want
line
to
are we
bring him
talking
down
about?
just a smidge here. So less percent on the execute and a little less healing when he does it. Again, want to be very light here. He is still a 6 cost. 6 costs are supposed to be good. You'll notice there's no Mel and Victor nerfs, but just the lightest touch to hopefully put him in line with everybody else.
What's the line he's talking about, by the way? I guess he's talking about like the baseline performance of 6 costs, but I mean Warwick is just an absolute terror. He's been the main source of content for a lot of popular streamers of just complaining about Warwick. He's the new popular thing to hate. Oh my god, my opponent hit Warwick. It swung this placement. Completely justified.
Items. This is like a bullet point small thing. It's actually in our small section, and it doesn't actually affect much of this set. It more affects next set. But basically, just so you know, Innervating Locket, the mana gain can no longer overflow. And what that basically means is if you were mana locked for a long time while Innervating Locket was generating mana, at the end of the mana lock, it would all come at once because it was overflowing. That's not how it's supposed to work. So now it works the same way as mana gain from taking damage, which means, this is a nerf to Locket for mana locked champions, which is mostly not what people are playing it as right now anyway. So again, most people won't even notice this, but it was creating a very bad case in the next set that we had to deal with.
Interesting.
And this is just healthier. So
Interesting. Locket dead. Dude, you're not supposed to be playing this on mana locked units, man. It's like you're not even listening to the video.
All right, on the augment side, when we hotfixed Diversified Portfolio back because it was bugged, we didn't hit the plus. Oops. So it's fixed now. It's now back to what it was, which is 1 gold per 3 traits, which is where it'll probably
Click this
stay.
augment if you see it now.
Kingslayer. I love this augment, but it's really hard and really narrow to play. That being said, we're going to give it an extra gold every time you Kingslay somebody. So it should be
A
better.
lot.
Support Mining Plus, small nerf, going to require 1 more death. Table Scraps, this augment came out too good. It's mostly because you get that 4th carousel with a full item. This is a big nerf to Table Scraps. I actually think it's going to be a little underpowered now, but we'll see. But now it only works for 3 carousels. And then Titanic Titan. This is basically a Chem Baron buff. If you take Titanic Titan, you'll get 25 health instead of 20. So if you want to take this and try to get another placement or 2, sweet.
They didn't buff Survivor. Oh, we top 4 too much with Survivor. Oh man, you had one job. We had to go bot 4 with Survivor. Each of us, if we contributed it, it would have buffed it again. Who's out here top 4 with Survivor? A lot of these make sense, dude. We actually saw a game. If you guys missed the coach stream yesterday, we saw a game where someone took table scraps, and on stage 5, it was the all tactician's crown carousel. So what did the person get with table scraps? That's right. He had 2 tactician's crowns. He won the game. He actually just table scraps into 2 tactician's crown and just won the game. So yeah, that's that augments when it hits, man. It is crazy.
If you take Titanic Titan, you'll get 25 health instead of 20. So
unbelievable.
You want to take this and try to get another placement or 2? Sweet. On the gold side, climb the ladder, underperforming for a generic combat augment, +1 stats. Gloves off, as I mentioned. We can't buff Vander and keep this augment the same.
True.
So this is meant to be about neutral. It is getting nerfed. Overheal, another generic combat augment, underperforming, some extra damage. Spirit Link is going to get some extra health regen, kind of underperforming. Team Up Mentorship and Team Up Reunion, both overperforming. Those are going to get nerfed. Too much value. This is one that we kind of had to bribe people to play for a little bit, giving them a bunch of 2 costs. Once people figured out how to play it, realized how insane this augment is, it's really, really good. So we're taking back those 2 costs. You lose those.
Good.
And then finally, Unleash the Beast. This is the Sterix augment.
Okay,
Did you really
Urgon's
need
dead.
to be CC immune for 10 seconds? Probably not. Probably not. So
It's a pretty big deal. 10 seconds is it. I'm just gonna say it for the content, but I'm not entirely sure. What is this? Team Up Mentorship? Is this what is mentorship? Is that martial law? Is that geniuses? Is that geniuses? But they're not AD. Martial law. It's martial law. Kate and Bessa. Okay, so they're nerfing okay, that makes sense. Martial law. I don't know if you guys know, but martial law, there are augment stats out there. Martial law is still busted, man. I looked at it. It's averaging a 3.8. What the heck? That went up since I last checked. That is crazy, man. That is crazy. Yeah, I mean, if you're not clicking that augment, if you're playing Enforcers, I don't know what you're doing. So they're nerfing that for sure. Reunion, I mean, it's all because these did really well. Makes sense. I'm pretty sure some of the stats behind Spirit Link is because people click it when they're low HP. So like, oh, this is probably good. So it's like one of those things, but it's okay. It's still not even that good of an augment, even if you take it in a good scenario. So it's fine. Yeah, I mean, not much more to say.
5 seconds CC.
Oh, actually, fun. Yesterday, T-Lies told me that Climb the Ladder is BIS in Gloves Off. Because it just makes the super unit Vander a lot better because you're killing all the family and watchers off and he's the last unit surviving. I thought that was interesting.
On the Prismatic side, the nerf I'm the most sad to see here, birthday present. It was like way too good, unfortunately, at 2 gold, which was kind of expected, but we're going to put it to 1 gold. Hopefully it's still very good here, but we don't need regionals and worlds to turn into whoever hits birthday present in tempos wins the game at level 10 with 100 health. That's not what we're looking for, so it is going to get nerfed. Blazing Soul 2, overperforming very slightly. It's going to lose 5% attack speed. Blinding Speed. This is an augment that's been underperforming for a while. It's not very exciting. Getting a Ginsu's and a red buff, especially if you've already built a Sunfire, feels pretty bad.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that getting a Giant Slayer instead of a red buff will feel like a better upgrade. Still be, 5 components worth of value. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Ghost of the Friends Pass is finally very, very close. Just 1 more HP per stack. And then quality over quantity, now that people finally understand how to play this. I feel like this augment was probably good when it was 0. It's just no one knew how to play it. Now that people are figuring out how to play it, it's good. It's going to get nerfed. My guess is it's still too good.
Interesting. All right. Birthday present. Listen, Disto won the World Championship when he gave 1 gold, so why not you? Blazing Soul. I'm actually surprised they didn't nerf Blazing Soul 3. Oh, no, this is the... Okay, never mind. This is the Prismatic one. I thought he was nerfing the gold. Because the Prismatic one is crazy. So that makes sense. This is actually a really interesting change. Giant Slayer instead of red buff. And so... it's a pretty big deal for the item, for the augment. It just makes me wonder when you're going to be taking it. If you're playing Twitch lines and stuff like that. Obviously, it might make you reconsider in some ways. Ghost of Friends Pass. It's interesting to hear that Mort said that it's actually close already. That's the part that sticks out to me. That I guess maybe it's actually more pickable. Right now, the perception is that it's unpickable. But maybe we're not playing it correctly. Because part of it was that when it first released, this is the augment that says if your units die, you get a permanent stack of whatever type of unit that is. So if you sacrificed a Trundle, your team got permanent HP. If you sacrifice a Lux, you got permanent AP. My guess is this is actually already playable, but people are bad at the augment. And now that it gets a slight buff, people are going to pay attention to it again. And all of a sudden, it might actually end up being a pretty solid augment. And this augment is busted because sorcerers are busted. You play this. But I've seen people play it into like enforcers and other things like that, and also had a lot of success.
So, and then anomalies. Bully has been needed to nerf for a while, but it was like locked, so he couldn't get it until just now.
Oh.
So 1%, 3% off the damage amp. Freestyling, underperforming a tiny bit, so 5% per damage amp. Plus, it just looks nicer to read.
True.
Heavy hitter. This is a weird one. It's pretty narrow, but
Just took this yesterday.
Buff here, so if you can figure out some good ways to use heavy hitter, consider it.
Use that 0 gold.
Very large buff here. Hive Mind. This is one of the new ones that ended up being a little bit bugged, but now it works 100%. We fixed a bug where it stopped functioning on death. What would happen is if your champion had Hive Mind, they got a kill, but then they died, you wouldn't get a copy. That's lame. That's fixed.
Yeah.
And the other thing we fixed was they had to get the killing blow.
Yeah.
Which meant it didn't work like Pilfer, because Pilfer is like, oh, my team killed somebody, I should get a copy. This one required the killing blow, which felt worse. So now it's just takedown. So the first thing that your anomaly hive mind person helps kill, you'll get a copy of that. Should be easier to understand. Should be better. Hunger for power has mostly fallen off here, especially since you can't force it.
Yes.
So it gets a small buff here.
I'm okay with that.
Hyper velocity, going to get 20 or 10% more attack speed. Infectious anomaly. This is a really interesting case. I know there's perception around it being overpowered. From what we can tell, it's not actually that overpowered. It's a tiny strong, so it is getting a tiny nerf. But it is the most like generic, safe choice anomaly. It's just make my team stronger. I don't know who to put it on. I've got lots of carries. Make them all a little stronger. And so what we've seen actually is the pick rate of this anomaly being through the freaking roof.
Yeah.
I was not expecting this one to be as popular as it has been.
Well, it's fun.
It is the most picked anomaly by a large amount. So it is going to be a bit of a nerf here. We don't need it to be like the catch-all that it is. But again, as you can see here, very, very tiny nerf. And then Repulsor. This one's more of an experiment. Repulsor is pretty bad at 40% attack speed. It's now going to be 50% attack speed. If it's not good here, then attack speed's just awful. 50% attack speed is
a lot of attack
kind of
speed.
nutty
Yeah,
for an anomaly.
actually a lot.
So if you need attack speed for your
Like
anomaly,
Zeri would want it.
consider Repulsor. But we'll see.
All right. I feel like Infectious Anomaly is like the perfect example of they could nerf it again and people would still pick it because it's just fun. You watch it spread. It has a cool visual glow. Scaling is fun. For the same reason people like watching Rageblade and Archangels. I mean, I feel like this is the fact that they're so surprised by it. I'm surprised that they're surprised. I mean, it's just like everything you want. It's flashy, it's scaling, it's kind of easy to understand. It's also cool because you click it and you're like, okay, I'm not sure what it does, and then you look at it and you're like, wait, this is actually awesome. So more, if anything, make more things like not exactly like team-wide buffs, but the core principles of what makes this a fun anomaly is like something that Riot should lean into. If they don't know why it's popular or they're surprised by it, they should stop being surprised by that kind of stuff. People love it. Okay, they buff hyper velocity. You know what they haven't buffed? They haven't buffed Headhunter, the one that's like infinite scaling based off kills. They buff every other attack speed anomaly, but they don't buff Headhunter. Is that anomaly actually really good? Headhunter's the one that's like you get 15% attack speed and every kill you permanently gain a stack. Is that one like busted? This is the entire set. I'm pretty sure I've been saying that that's like the worst anomaly in the entire game for like the entirety, but maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm just wrong because it gives you 15% attack speed and you have to kill 35 targets to get to Repulsor, which might take the entirety of the next stage. So it's like, am I just wrong? Is that augment actually kind of crazy? Is that anomaly kind of crazy? I'm not sure. People probably take it on high HP so it has good stats. Maybe. Hive Mind gets a whole green novel, 2 sentences of text fixes, so that this anomaly is broken. Heavy hitter. I've only seen it ever taken on bruiser lines, and it doesn't even make much sense in it because who do you want to put this on? Pretty much nobody. So I still don't know if this is really good on anybody, but we'll see. And then yeah, I mean, I didn't even know freestyling was bad. I see people take freestyling all the time and they do fine with it. So this is a buff to like the emissary flex stuff. Like you used to take freestyling on Corki and whatnot. And you got like 8-9 traits active pretty easily. It's a lot of damage amp.
And finally, bug fixes. Not a lot here, but Fire Sail now interacts correctly with Starry Night. Cool. Swapping a unit during the Thieves' Love ceremony can no longer cause the unit to visually linger in its old hex. Great. Swapping 2 units on the board can no longer cause strongest unit calculations to change. This mostly affects
annoying.
hero augments and anomalies if you're running 2 of the same unit.
Yep.
Swapping 2 units on the board can no longer cause trait activation VFX to play. Rolling a Jace with Pandora's Bench no longer fails to give you his Hextech Forge. Salvage Bin no longer deletes items when sold off units transformed by Pandora's Bench. And using Reforger on a unit in combat will no longer delete the Reforger. This Reforger one in particular, I've seen a lot of people complaining about, so hopefully
I did not know that.
This is the bug.
Why are we reforging during combat? It's probably because like they want to reforge at the last second and it started.
And there you go. That's the patch. It's not an enormous patch, but there's enough moving at the top and the bottom.
Oh, it's a big patch.
That it should mix things up quite a bit.
It's a big patch.
I expect the things that are currently like the top of S tier or A tier to come down, and we should see new things kind of rise to the top. Will it be Dominator? Will it still be Scrap? We'll have to see. But there you go. And I'm excited to see how people play it because, like I said, this is the regionals patch. So, yeah, should be fun. All right. Like I said, after this, 2 more patches. So there you go.
Yeah, and one's the 4 fun
That's
patch.
going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoy. Good luck to all the competitors who are trying to make it to Worlds, the Tactician's Crown. And, yeah, sweet. Until next time, take it easy.
Hey, more dog. All right, so that's the end of the patch rundown. Overall, I don't know what to think about this patch. He said it's not an enormous patch, and I think he means by just the sheer like quantity of changes, because maybe there hasn't been like maybe because other patches had like a lot more like small tweaks here and there. But I feel like this is a pretty impactful patch. Like they basically took down all the top comps. Sorcerers got hit in a couple of different ways. The fact that they hit LeBlanc and they hit the trade itself is a big deal. Renata got hit pretty hard, right? Like we can just go through the TFT Academy tier list. They kind of went down the list and they just took the bat to them. So like Source got nerfed, Visionaries got nerfed, Enforcer got nerfed, Scrap got nerfed. This actually technically got buffed. Academy not really changed. Zeri got nerfed. Singe actually is a big deal. Camber and Visionaries also actually got buffed. But they nerfed 6 Visionaries, right? So they basically like kind of took the bats a lot of this. They buffed a lot of this stuff. Family got like buffed a lot. I expect there's a pretty good chance Family might be S tier next patch, but we'll see. Dominators got buffed. Kog'Maw got buffed. Conquerors technically got buffed. Chembaron got buffed. Pit Fighters got a lot of buffs. Buffing Draven, buffing their early game, buffing their mid game, buffing their late game, buffing their top end. So I mean, it's not purely about the number of buffs, but there also is like sort of a critical mass of just like when you can give enough small buffs here and there, it can add up. Sniper rework is really interesting. I don't really know. My guess is Sniper Emblem is broken now, but we'll see. maybe we can finally get excited about Sniper +1. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Rumble is overdue for a nerf. They didn't apparently they're not bug fixing some of the stuff that messed up some of the tournaments today. Like Jace deleted a unit. I think Frontline Jace actually had a couple of bugs this past weekend, so they're not fixing that. And then there's also a bug with the trench coat thing, which is unfortunate. I hope they can fix that by Worlds patch, because that would suck if that decided the World Championship. But yeah, I mean, overall, interesting stuff. I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't touch more augments as well. Now that I think about it, I feel like there's a lot more augments I probably would have maybe started doing small adjustments to, but I guess this means that internally their data augments are actually in a pretty good spot. So, like, I feel like they would take a bigger swing at augments if it was actually as far off as some people make it out to be. Is this a regionals patch? Yes, it is. Which Jace bug? There's a Jace bug where sometimes frontline Jace will just delete a unit off your opponent's board permanently. We saw a clip today in APAC where I don't think I have the clip anymore, but someone's Jace hit a Garen, and then the next unit, that person had Garen, no longer Garen on the board. The Garen just disappeared. And he bought 2 more Garens and didn't hit Garen 2, and then he lost the items on the Garen as well. It was kind of crazy. So they remade the game. They remade the game from start. It was like stage 5, but they chose to remake the lobby, which I'm actually proud of. So all right, let me